Hey guys! So today I just wanted to talk with you guys about how I learned Japanese. And I may have mentioned it before, but I learned Japanese for about a year and a half back in Hawaii, and I took another year of Japanese here in Japan. So when I was in Hawaii, I was using the Genki books, and this seems to be a really popular book at a lot of schools, but I started off with one, this one's the second. And it has a lot of the useful grammar and everything in it. It has useful kanji and all that. So I thought this was a really good book. It had a lot of activities and made it kind of interesting and fun to learn. Also, the Japanese university that I was going to also used to use these books. Maybe about halfway through my university time, they ended up changing the starter books. But they did use these before. Also, when I did a 1 month summer program here in Japan, we were also using these books at that time as well. So for the first year and a half, I used this book, and I believe we finished most of the book. There might be a few chapters at the end that we didn't get to, but for the most part, this book was really helpful, really easy to understand, and the good thing about it is all the explanation and stuff is in English. So that kind of helped. But if you like learning in Japanese, then this was the next book I used. It's intermediate Japanese, and it's like the next level up from it. And with this book, almost everything is in Japanese. You can see it does have English explanations and stuff, but they're kind of vague explanations. Most of it is all in Japanese. And then there's the vocab words and kanji and stuff. So this was another useful book that we used here. And I also feel like all the grammar and stuff that's in this book is something that you may actually use in conversations. The higher up you go, the more likely there'll be grammar and stuff that you may not use. And a lot of Japanese people, when they look at the books, they'll be like, why are you learning this grammar? Because we don't even use this grammar. You will need them for the placement tests, such as the N2 and the N1 level. So it is good to learn if you're planning to take the placement test, but if you're not planning to take the placement test, then I'd say the intermediate level would be good enough. But if you do want to move on to the advanced level, this is the book that I used for my advanced level. And these are all textbooks that our classes required, so I didn't find them on my own. It's just my classes said buy this and use this. But this one, as you can see, because it's an advanced level, there's barely any English at all. There's like one sentence of explanation, and all the examples and everything is all in Japanese. Of course, it does get more complicated as you move along, but it kind of just depends what you want to get out of the Japanese that you're learning. If you just want to make conversation and stuff, I feel like the Genki book is plenty enough to at least get started. And from there, what you need to do is actually use the Japanese. Like, you can't just learn from the textbook. After finishing this whole book, I somewhat knew how to use Japanese, and if I was messaging or something, I could use Japanese while having to look things up because I wasn't good at it yet. But after moving on to the second book, it was getting really difficult and it was hard for me to remember things. So what helped me the most was I was working at a restaurant here while I was going to college, and no one at the restaurant speaks English. If anything, they just knew a few words here and there. So everything was always taught to me in Japanese, and whenever we had free time, we would just talk stories and stuff, and it really helped to improve my Japanese. So the first half a year I was here, I barely could speak Japanese. If it was messaging, then I had no problem, but after the second half of my first year here, that's when I was working and I was hanging out with more Japanese students, so I was actually using the Japanese. When I first came to Japan, I was like here. And after studying for the first half year, maybe I was like here. And then after working while still studying, I probably went up to like here. And my Japanese isn't perfect. I probably don't speak Japanese well enough to be able to work in a Japanese company. My main problem is kanji. I never really studied it as much as I should. So I'm not quite at that level, but speaking level, I can make conversation fine. If I don't understand a word, they just have to like simplify it for me and I'll understand exactly what they're saying. So I have no problems with speaking. I still have problems with reading and of course writing, but I did take the N2 test twice and I was really close to passing the second time, but I was taking Korean at the same time because it was a requirement at my university to take another language other than Japanese and English. And I just so happened to have a midterm exam the same week as the placement test. So because that one actually affects my grades, I kind of put that one as a priority, and that test was first as well. So I put my priority into that and I started studying Japanese harder after the test was over. And so I missed the second test by 6 points. So it was really close, really close. If I would have studied my kanji a little harder, I probably could have passed the N2. But I didn't study as hard as I should have. That's kind of where my level is at. I just tell people I'm at the N2 level because speaking-wise, I'm about there. There's still a lot of vocab and stuff that I don't understand, but when speaking, it's easy to get around that. I wouldn't be able to work in a Japanese company, which is part of the reason why I became a teacher. So I also use this Kanji book. It's one that I used when I was taking the advanced classes, and I really like this one. I do recommend it. I've never tried any other vocab books, so I'm not sure how the others are. But this one comes with a link to download like hearing tests and stuff, so you can also practice your listening. And one thing I like about this book is it has the kanji, and it has the furigana on top, which is how you read the kanji. And then it comes with the example sentence. And then underneath the example sentence, it has the translation. And if you know other languages as well, it has Korean and Chinese in addition to the English. So it has all different languages, not just English. And one thing I really like about Japanese like study books and books like this is if you notice, like this is red and there's some words in here that are in red. So all of them always comes with this little red sheet. And if you put it over it, you kind of can't see the white either. And so if you put this over it, you can't see the kanji anymore. All you can do is read the example sentence and it blocks out the kanji here as well. So you have to kind of understand the sentence and then figure out which kanji it is. Or if you look here, there's the meaning for the kanji. So you read that and then you can guess the kanji from there. So it kind of helps you study if you're good at studying from books like this. I'm more of a flashcard user because I like to shuffle them and study them out of order. I always notice that if I study them in order every single time, if I was to mix them up, I wouldn't remember them anymore. So I always made them onto flashcards and that's how I studied. But that little red sheet really helps if you're someone who's good at studying with like straight from the book. But yes, I definitely recommend this if you're planning to take the N2. If you're planning to take the N1, there's also the N1 version to this book. I never got that far, so I never did buy it. But I do recommend this book. I feel like it's a must-have for studying vocab words. Not just the kanji, but also just vocab words in general. So that's pretty much how I learned Japanese. Pretty basic. Most of it was through taking classes at university, and the rest of it was actually using it by talking to friends and working. So my recommendation for you, it just depends on what you want, like I was saying earlier. If you want to take the placement test, you really need to study the high level Japanese, and I suggest using textbooks. If you have Japanese friends, talking with them won't quite teach you the grammar that you need, because a lot of the Japanese people don't use the kind of grammar that they have on the higher up levels of the placement test. So if you do want to go with those, I suggest studying as much as you can. Kanji is a really important part of the placement test. But if you just want to learn Japanese to kind of get around Japan or to be able to make conversations or make friends in Japan, then I'd say the most important thing is just using your Japanese and speaking to people. But I really do like this Genki book. And if you want to just learn basic Japanese, I suggest going ahead with this. But that's it for today. I hope you guys learned a little something about how I learned Japanese and what textbooks I've used for my classes. And if you guys have any questions, please write a comment down below and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!